how different the fog is out on the ocean compared to what we might experience on land.
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference from this is what I observed on the ocean, and this is coming from a background of 5 years of fog experience in living in St. John's, Newfoundland, is that the wind is substantially more sustained over the ocean. The fog can be around you, and the wind is blowing a gale, and it just doesn't end. It stays right there with you. There were times when the ship was trying to follow the fog, and it was moving faster than the ship was able to try and keep up with it. The other thing that we thought was really unexpected was there were times that we were in fog at the surface, but you could see a blue sky above you, or you could see the moon above you. So the fog layer was very dense right at the surface, but you could see this beautiful blue sky and the clouds through this thin skin of fog at the surface. So there were a few very interesting differences there that we could see during this campaign.
Okay, so there you are.
So it's coming up to 1 o'clock. Maybe we should get a bite to eat.
Yes.
You want to study the fog. How do you study fog? What do? Go out with a mason jar or open jar and put the lid on? How do you capture it?
Yeah, so this campaign, we took every instrument that you could imagine to try and measure fog. So we measured it from wave gliders at the ocean surface, fog droplet monitors that would be used to detect fog on land. We had things to measure solar irradiance, wind speed, at all those different heights as well. And then my team, we brought chemistry measurements onto the ship to sample the air. So we were there to study what the connection between molecular scale processes and fog formation were. The chemistry of the atmosphere will determine the composition of particles that are suspended in it. So we usually call these aerosols. And they're made of salt if they're coming from, let's say, sea spray. So we all know what a breaking wave looks like, and you see that mist come off the surface. Well, that's made out of sodium chloride, and it's very capable of collecting water from the atmosphere. So if you put it in a humid environment, it basically acts as a seed for a droplet to form. So every cloud that you see is made up of a collection of these droplets, and at the center of all of those is a seed of aerosol. And the ability of one of these aerosols to collect water depends on the chemicals it's made of.
So after all was said and done, how well did Mother Nature cooperate to give you all the data that you were after?
Well, it cooperated very well. We were blessed with an absolute abundance of fog during this campaign. They organized this campaign to have intensive observation periods, and the ship essentially had one from start to finish for the full month that it was out there collecting samples.
Wow, an amazing experience. Dr. Vanderburg, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Bob.
Dr. Trevor Vanderboer is an assistant professor of environmental analytical chemistry from York University in Ontario. And we finish our show with a young researcher just beginning a multi-year international tour to study jellyfish.
My name is Jessica Schaub. I'm a PhD student at the University of British Columbia. I'm an oceanographer, and I specialize in jellyfish ecology. This summer, I spent 40 days in Japan for the first of 4 trips that I'll be taking this year, thanks to a travel fellowship from the Kimberley Foundation.
Attention please. Japan Airlines Flight 7 is now arriving.
I arrived in Japan at the beginning of July. My host, Professor Shinichi Uie, is a retired professor with the University of Hiroshima, and he's been studying jellyfish for decades. Jellyfish are quite poorly studied across the world, and there are a lot of misconceptions about their role in ecosystems.
Jellyfish blooms seem to be taking over the headlines, from dangerous blooms on beaches to rising numbers clogging intake valves and taking over fishing nets.
So,
while they do have negative interactions in some parts of the world, they've also been on the planet for about 600 million years. And after all this time, they've developed roles and are an integral part of ecosystem functioning, nutrient cycling, and food web dynamics.
We could see if this is starting to work. It is starting to work. Now, we could have in
chance of
Just missed
showers,
the
a high of
news.
22. Cloudy overnight, a low of 15.
Ooh.
I'm Dr. Brian Goldman. This is White Coat Black Card.
It's a hot and sultry day, isn't it, kiddo?
Yes, it sure is.
Well, there's all kinds of hubbub going on at from the news we get here at Rideau Hall. So there's probably I don't know if today's going to be a good day to go see it. I think maybe tomorrow will be a better day to do that. What you think? Because they've got all, this is when they've got everybody down there sort of signing books, and the Prime Minister's there, and they're sort of doing the formal thing. Down so here ahead of us, people behind us, Now refresh my memory, sweetheart. We turn on to Hunt Club, don't we? We go down to Burton.
have fun. Yes.
Are you starved?
Not quite.
But you're getting there.
Yes.
What about you?
Oh yes, I see it.
There's Lone Star. That's it. That's it. Well, I was very intrigued to read that Chevrolet, General Motors, is claiming that in next year, 2023, they're going to have an all-electric vehicle called the Equinox. It's going to have a range of about 300 miles, and it'll cost $30,000.
Reasonable.
Oh, very reasonable. So we'll have to see if they deliver on that. So that's what Elon Musk said he was going to, produce a car for $35,000, and the first cars he produced were full of problems. He didn't sell very well, and he jacked up the price and started putting all kinds of features in those cars. You say so. I can't look. Oh, from your place.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's very it's more short up.
okay. There's a lot of cranes down in Montreal. There's a lot of construction going on down there. I've never seen it so much construction in Montreal. Everywhere you look, there's
Mm-hmm.
a 30, 40, 50-story building going up. So I think the whole country is going through a boom.
Natural bird is green.
Yes, I think so.
What's going on there?
I don't know. Maybe they're having enjoying a big deep cup of Mr. Lube.
Is that a
Oh, no,
political
it
thing?
must be.
Showing the signs, the voting signs?
Yeah, it's
Mm.
regarding come and vote please. Belonging at three couple okay. I thought it'd pass. I've been away for a bit, so.
Yeah. Where's your brain been?
Well, no, I just my set personality and mentality is, that's for people with mobility problems, and I don't have one, so I'm not yet anyway. Well, most of the time. Most of the time.
I don't have one either. What's your problem? Huh?
Growl, growl, growl. Well, I could go park in the spot and just say, I get a ticket. So, it's her fault. She forgot her prize.
Sure.
Look at me. She made me do it.
Of course.
There's lots of parking. This is Sunday.
Exactly. You don't know.
Will we get lucky?
Well, this is close, but one more more.
Actually, I can go here. Those places are. And you'll have lots of room to get out.
Okay, that's good.
Well, one nice thing about, this GoPro is we're getting a complete record of the trip. You and me together. I mean, in 40 or 50 years' time, we'll be able to sit back and look at it. Oh yeah, I remember that. This is this person up ahead here.
It's you.
Can you take a look at my phone? I think it's an alarm. What does it say? I won't be able to look because I got my hands full here.
That's just, it's gone now.
into account and avoid a strip of Ogilvy. Go on Montreal Road to Blair and then that guy's got Mr. Magoo's on his now that's a road. Okay, that was a car we were going to rent. temperatures drop down, it's much more pleasant. And I guess other people are trying to beat the bottleneck at Ogilvy coming down here as well. So both ways are jammed. Everybody's going over, heading east. Temperatures really dropped here once you get away from the center of the city. It's really
problème d'eau.
In Ontario, several groups are challenging the Ford government's wage cap legislation known as Bill 124. The CBC's Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has that story.
The bill caps wage increases for 3 years across the vast bulk of Ontario's public sector. It covers nearly 800,000 employees in hospitals, schools, colleges, universities, and many long-term care homes.
That's so short-sighted.
They're banned from getting pay hikes of more than 1% annually. Patty Coates leads the Ontario Federation of Labor.
Ridiculous. They're going to lose all their teachers, all their scientists.
A blatant attack on free and fair collective bargaining in Ontario.
A dozen labor unions and federations are involved in the case. Among their arguments, that the wage cap disproportionately affects women and workers of color. The president of the Ontario Nurses Association, Catherine Hoy.
Do you want your loved ones to be treated like this? Do you want females to be thought of as lesser?
The government's lawyers aren't due to speak in court until next week. In their written submission, they argue the bill does not infringe on workers' rights because the wage restraint is for a limited time and still allows for 1% pay increases. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A 76-year-old cyclist has been killed in a crash with a motor vehicle in Belleville. OPP say it happened last Friday night on Highway 62 near Maitland Drive. Police say the vehicle appears to have hit the cyclist from behind. The cyclist was later pronounced dead in hospital. Police have identified him as Roy Wang of Belleville. The group Ottawa Transit Riders is again asking candidates and city officials to park their cars this week and take only public transit. It's the first edition of the Ottawa Transit Challenge since the pandemic began. And unlike previous editions, this one is being held in the middle of a municipal election campaign. Uday Rana has this report.
Ottawa Transit Riders sent out invites to all mayoral, council and school trustee candidates along with key OC Transpo and City of Ottawa officials. Their request was simple. Find out what the city's transit riders go through before making decisions about the network. Board member Rory Lewis says the challenge can help voters pick who to vote for, especially if they want better public transit in the city.
You know, we've opened this to everyone, and we want people to be aware of it, and if they have a candidate that comes to their doorstep and talks to them about transit, we want people to ask those people, are you taking the transit challenge?
The group says councillors who don't ride the bus or take the LRT won't make informed decisions about what transit users need. So far, 55 people have responded to their invitation, including John Reddins. He's a paratranspo user who's running for city council in the Gloucester Southgate ward.
The fact is that regular transit users can have options. We don't. And also the fact too, the accessibility cabs are now becoming hard to get in the city because of the Uber.
The challenge runs until Saturday. Uday Rana, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally in the news, 3 off-duty OPP officers in Hawkesbury got more in than a game of golf last week. They likely saved a man who had gone into medical distress. The 3 officers were golfing last Wednesday when another golfer collapsed. The officers began to administer CPR. They managed to revive the man before he was taken to hospital. Police have released a photo of the 3 men standing with the man they helped, looking apparently hale and hearty after his collapse. That was the CBC News. Here's Andrew with traffic.
Thank you, Lawrence. What sticks out to me right now is slow traffic eastbound on the 50 passing the Gatineau Airport. It's at its worst around Lorraine. It's on an active construction site this time of day, but if I've been correct, I still have all the gear, the signs, everything's still there. As well, construction and traffic flow are combining to slow the 401 westbound leaving Cornwall, as well passing Morrisburg, and eastbound as you near Brockville. There is light to moderate congestion in Ottawa on the Queensway, and still nothing on the 174. Still in Ottawa, westbound Richmond Road is now closed between New Orchard Avenue and McEwen Avenue. This is just past Woodruff if you're going west, and that's until the end of 2023. This is for Stage 2 light rail work, specifically where they're putting in the Byron Avenue tunnel. The detours, thankfully, are not bad. Drivers and cyclists can just go not too far to the north and then back down to rejoin Richmond Road, and pedestrians can still get to businesses along the stretch of Richmond Road. Again, closing as of yesterday till the end of next year, 2023. If you have anything you'd like to let me know about, you can send me a tweet at CBC OTT Traffic. You can also call the traffic line at 613-288-6900. And Alan, I'm back around 4 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Andrew. And weather-wise tonight, well, low of 18. We do have 60% chance of showers, risk of a thunderstorm. Here on Sparks, it's like the skies just cleared up just moments ago. But Tuesday, we are looking at the risk of a thunderstorm, 15 to 25 millimeters, high of 20, the humidex 27, and low of 15 Tuesday night. Then Wednesday, clear, high of 23 and a low of 6. Right now, 24 degrees, the humidex 29, winds coming from the east-northeast at 11 kilometers an hour, and the visibility 24 kilometers.
Jesus, look at the traffic. Garbage trucks, and look at that, there's a whole convoy of them.
Coming up to 3:40 here on All in a Day. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has packed a few extra pounds onto the waistlines of millions of Canadians, apparently. But even before that, Canada ranked among the world's most overweight countries. However, new medical and surgical approaches to obesity could limit the physical and mental harms of excessive weight gain. For a medical look at these options and their side effects, we've reached Dr. Iris Gorfinkel, our regular health contributor, family doctor, and a vaccine researcher. Hi there.
A warm hello to you.
Before we get into those strategies, tell me a little bit more about the impact the pandemic has had on the average Canadian's weight. What have we seen happen?
Yeah, in just the first year of the pandemic, 2 out of 5 Canadians had already put on weight, and nearly 1 out of 5 had put on at least 11 pounds. That's according to a Dalhousie study. So the reason? More junk food, more alcohol, and less exercise. So when excessive pounds add to a person's waistline, the risk of getting diabetes, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, all this goes up. And so does the risk of getting cancer. The World Health Organization flags obesity as the second leading cause of cancer after smoking. Its impact on women is especially hard because fat can make estrogen, and that acts like a fertilizer to breast cancer and cancer of the uterus. But it also increases the risk of developing colorectal and kidney cancers. Now, belly fat especially increases inflammation, and that causes cells to divide more often, and that means more likelihood of having a mistake in that cellular division, and those mutations can make a normal cell transform into a cancerous one.
Okay, so there are obviously serious possibilities from this. What, medically speaking, what options exist to help a person lose weight?
So, of course, there's the diet and exercise. I can't help myself, but the Mediterranean diet, here we go again. It's been shown to make people live the longest and healthiest lifespan. Leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, fatty fish, olive oil. The minimum amount of exercise, we're talking 20 minutes a day of walking along with some simple stretches. But it's key to understand the factors that bring on obesity. So it's like the history, the physical examination. This is all things that should be done by a physician's office to try to better understand. Is it the medications? You know, because several drugs are known to cause weight gain, especially prescriptions given for mood disorders and diabetes, insulin.
This was a bad idea.
So we need to get that complete picture. Blood work can be checked.
Ontario rejecting private care, which is fine, we make no judgment around that. We do have to have a better understanding around where people see the money coming from. Do they want to pay more in income tax? Do they want to see spending reduced in other areas? Because as we know, against the backdrop of an aging population and a growing population, it's got to come from somewhere. Healthcare could literally eat the budget of every province and the federal government altogether.
So, is there a recognition of the connection between, okay, we're having a hard time getting a doctor right now, or there are hurdles in the health system, as you said, the exact things that we were talking to you about last week on this program.
Yeah.
And the need for that infusing of money or resources into the healthcare system.
Well, as I say, I think that's something that we're going to have to take a deeper look at, just around those trade-offs and where does it come from and how does it come? Are people of the view that more money will be the thing that fixes it? Certainly we see some pretty big differences along political lines around whether people think private or not private will harm or help the system. But also I think it's a matter of trying to get some perspective and some understanding additionally around, well, is it a matter of money? Is it a matter of efficiency? Is it a matter of resource allocation, i.e. the same money but spending differently? This will be, Alan, one of the biggest issues of our time, especially as we face an older and super aged population. The needs around care are only going to get more complex. They're only going to grow in some ways more expensive, especially as
They should just get rid of everybody over 75.
Coming up with new ways to help people live better and longer every day. Of course, the other side to that is it costs more, and we are, as a country, at least half of us are saying we don't want any overflow or any diversion into a private system at all.
We're going to be talking more about the new leader of the Federal Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, later on the program. But given that there is a new leader of that party, how do you think Canadian political leaders should be interpreting this information?
Well, you know, this was not a CPC race that was very heavy on policy, was it? But I think it's certainly notable that we found in March fully 70% of people who cast a ballot didn't cast a ballot, but who supported Pierre Poilievre's leadership and wanted to see him become leader of the Conservative Party, were also all in on seeing more privatization and expanded privatization of the Canadian health system. So what I take from that is that given the absolute strength of his victory over the weekend, a landslide is a tame word for it. He has that mandate from his supporters. He has that mandate from his members to go there and pursue that. Of course, the question he's got to ask himself is, does it restrict his ability to grow his base, or are people so challenged and so fed up with the difficulties of accessing care under a universal system that they are not prepared to go there? And again, we see that right now, even 30% of existing past CPC voters, people who voted for the Conservatives about this time a year ago, are not quite convinced that privatized care is the way to go. So there's a lot of nuance here. I know, I gotta wrap it up.
We'll have to hold it there. Thanks very much for being with us.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Shachi Girl, president of the Angus Reid Institute. Andrew Foote back in with a look at the roads.
I'll mention a crash on westbound Baseline, causing it to drop to one lane from Woodruff to Navajo. It's in the middle of that intersection, and delays westbound here start not long after you pass Arundel Drive. Be back with more after the news.
Thanks very much, Andrew. You're listening to us on 91.5 in Ottawa, Gatineau, 107.5 in Kingston.
Coming this fall, I'm Rick Mercer. Welcome to Comedy Night Canada's premier stand-up comedy showcase, featuring the best stand-up comics this country has to offer.
I did have a girlfriend in high school. All we ever did was just like crack
CBC Gem. Tonight on The National.
She sets an example of selfless duty.
As Prince, Charles spoke often of a slimmed-down monarchy with far fewer senior members. Now that he's king, what would that look like? Join us on Canada's Newscast, tonight at 10:30 in Newfoundland on CBC and CBC Gem.
Apparently he has a special servant to draw his bath for him, and he has another special servant to lay out his clothes for him.
We begin in Ottawa. The newly elected leader of the Conservative Party in Canada addressed his caucus for the first time this morning.
Canadians are hurting, and it is our job to transform that hurt into hope, and that is my mission.
Pierre Poilievre took aim at the Liberal government's response to inflation and accused Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of being out of touch with Canadians. As we hear from Tom Perry, it did not take long for Trudeau to respond.
I want to congratulate Mr. Poilievre.
A moment of civility before taking off the gloves. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau launching a full-on attack against new Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
Buzzwords, dog whistles, and careless attacks don't add up to a plan for Canadians.
Trudeau reminding Canadians of what he calls Poilievre's reckless and questionable ideas. His attacks on institutions like the Bank of Canada, his embrace of Bitcoin as a means of dodging inflation, and his alignment with protesters angry over vaccine mandates.
That's not responsible leadership.
Trudeau meeting his MPs this week, looking to reconnect with voters worried about a rising cost of living, looking as well to counter a newly energized Conservative opposition. Tom Perry, CBC News, St. Andrews, New Brunswick.
Post-tropical storm Earl has dumped more than 200 millimeters of rain on St. John's, Newfoundland and surrounding area. Overflowing rivers and water buildup has caused flooding that's closed many roads in and around the capital. Rita Pinnell is the mayor of Trepassey on the tip of the Avalon Peninsula. She says the storm tore up some roads, cutting off a section of the town.
It's devastating. We have a loader down there now, clearing it up, trying to make an emergency opening because there's nobody can get down or nobody can get up.
And the town of Paradise has received more rain in the past 2 days than the area gets in an entire month. Now to Scotland.
Scotland.
Silence at St. Giles's Cathedral as King Charles and members of the royal family approach the coffin of Queen Elizabeth. A vigil is being held for the late monarch in Edinburgh, where thousands of mourners are paying their final respects. Abby Kulvathan has more on today's events.
King Charles walks side by side with his siblings behind their mother's hearse, all but Prince Andrew in military garb. Scots and people from around the world came in the thousands to the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, some camping overnight.
I was really upset when she died. It's a very big moment.
Inside St. Giles's Cathedral, the Crown of Scotland was placed on her coffin before a service. A direct descendant of Queen Mary of Scots, Elizabeth carried the weight of the crown's responsibility for 70 years. Today, King Charles pledging in Parliament to follow in his mother's footsteps.
My mother felt, as I do, the greatest admiration for the Scottish people.
The country she loved waiting to show their love in return. A winding line has formed outside the church as members of the public patiently wait to walk past her coffin and bid farewell. Abby Kulvathan, CBC News, Edinburgh.
To Ukraine now. A mayor in Kharkiv region stands before a crowd of Ukrainian soldiers and cuts up a Russian flag. For months, the Derhachi district had been occupied by Russian forces, but that changed today. Ukraine has succeeded in a startling offensive to take back much of the northeast. Russia admits the loss, but still controls about a fifth of Ukrainian territory, including the area surrounding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant.
What I see is two sides that are engaging with us, that are asking questions, lots of questions.
The head of the UN nuclear watchdog says there are signs Russia and Ukraine are open to implementing a protection zone around the damaged facility. Rafael Grossi says both countries are engaging with the agency on next steps. And that is your world this hour. For CBC News, I'm Tom Harrington. Thanks for listening.
Hi there, I'm Alan Neal, and this is All in a have been in court today challenging the Ontario government over its greenhouse gas targets. We'll hear from one of them and one of the lawyers from Eco-Justice supporting them after 4:30. Other young adults find themselves playing the waiting game right now as thousands of international students are still in their home countries waiting for the approvals they need to travel to Canada.
If I knew about this, I would never apply to Canada. I would choose another country for studying.
We'll also talk about how the news of the Queen's death came as a renewed reminder of the Crown's colonial past. For those from former British colonies, we'll talk about that. Plus more on the Pierre Poilievre victory and...
been a lifetime trying to get this high.
Megan Thee Stallion's latest dancing partner got a lot of attention online.
Oh, you are way more fun than my last lawyer. I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion. Solid back.
The music star appeared on She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, one of the most talked about series these days. Well, we take a look at it with two Ottawa actresses who have actually played the Green Heroine before. That and more coming up on All in a Day. You're listening to us at 91.5 in Ottawa, Gatineau, 107.5 in Kingston. Lawrence Wall joining us, taking a look at what reporters are working on.
Alan, a man says yesterday's homicide in his Nepean neighborhood is a little bit shocking. Ottawa police have charged a 33-year-old man after the city's latest killing, that one on Woodvale Drive. Ontario is starting its rollout of Omicron-targeted COVID-19 vaccines. Shots will go first to those considered the most vulnerable, including people aged 70 and older, long-term care residents, and healthcare workers. A 76-year-old cyclist has been killed in a crash with a motor vehicle in Belleville. OPP say Roy Wah Wang of Belleville was pronounced dead in hospital after the collision. Two Green Party MPs have threatened to sit as independents if the party suspends its leadership race. An internal email shows that Elizabeth May and Mike Morris are raising concerns over the ongoing turmoil and conflict within the party. And a woman from Cornwall has been identified as the victim of a crash on Sunday morning. Police say the vehicle went off the road, killing 22-year-old Amber Vanima. Alan, I'll have a full newscast at 4:30 here on Radio 1.
Thanks very much, Lawrence. Andrew Foote joining me now, taking a look at the roads out there. Andrew, how's it looking?
Well, the crash on westbound Baseline around Woodruff is cleaned up. There is now a broken down vehicle in the center of the Portage Bridge heading toward Gatineau, so take another bridge if you can that way. The Chaudière Bridge is technically open going north, but there's just one lane, and sometimes southbound buses